I think there's so many things that make this next chapter unique. I think first and foremost, Mike directing is a tremendous thing in the context of our films. We've done so much work to sort of build these characters and their journey and so much growth, I think, between all of us collaborators. And so for him to step in to the directing chair for this one, I think makes it really special. And then, I think what makes these films inside of obviously the boxing, I think what makes these films so special is the relationships. And to see the relationship between Adonis and his daughter, Amara, to see their relationship grow. I think that also makes this film special, is that you sort of introduce a new relationship that becomes the centerpiece. And then, of course, the relationship between Jonathan Majors, his character, and Mike's character. I think that adds a kind of richness that all of the fights are complicated by something that is really personal. And I think that when these films really sing, it's when it's about the relationships. I think really centrally, I think the thing for Adonis has always been struggling with what his legacy is, what his purpose is. And, the very thing that Bianca says is trying to impart to her daughter, which is it's not enough to just, know that you want to fight. You want to know why you want to fight. I think the same is true for Adonis, that sometimes he's compelled so much by this outward idea of what success looks like, and he's not always focused on what is internal. And I think that's something that makes the character really relatable. I think it's something that can happen to all of us sometimes. I think sometimes there's this idea of you get to a certain place in your career, you get to a certain place in your financial mobility, that means that you're happy, and that's not always true. I think the things that really make us fundamentally happy are our connections with the people that we're around. And I think that's something that you get to see them understand in new ways in the context of this film. What I love about the way that these films speak to the importance of family is that it's not just the family that we're born into, it's our chosen family, it's the family that we have in the folks that mentor us, in the folks that we mentor, in our relationships inside our community, inside of our teams, that the idea of family is really different for every single person. And that's something that I think is really important about these films. And in some cases, that's your family by blood. And for many people, family comes in all sorts of different, chosen, beautiful ways. And I love that our films speak to that when it talks about family. I think that you get to see that with them, that they're, particularly for Adonis, there's this real inability to really open up and talk very candidly about what's happening with him internally. And I think what I like about the journey of our film is that you get to see that, like, no matter how hard the conversation can be sometimes to begin to tell someone your truth, that it's always better when you do. It just is. Whatever happens, it's just better when you do. And that there's no real healing without being able to do that, to take that first hard step. And once you do, it's usually, I don't know, I found at least, not as hard as you think it was going to be. Just as much as Adonis is sort of harboring this secret about his past and a friend that comes back into his life, Bianca also hasn't been honest with him entirely about how hard it's been to not be on stage and perform, and what that's done to her sense of self, or the struggles inside of motherhood and trying to figure out, what your life is, besides that, which many women struggle with, I think. So I think once they begin to talk, you can see that's what I love about them, that they feel aspirational in this sense that, like, they're not perfect. They're, like, perfectly imperfect, but they're trying. I think what felt exciting for me in this one is that she also gets to have, you know, her own areas that she's struggling with. I think that's something that's always felt important in the characters conversations that Ryan Coogler and I had in the beginning. Sometimes there's this tendency that the female character is sort of like the rock or the voice of reason, and while that's probably definitely true a lot, well, women can do that very well and tend to. I also think in the context of storytelling, sometimes it doesn't allow us to also have our own humanity, to also be the person that needs somebody else to help them see. Because we know that we all do sometimes, that we are not these like perfect pillars of wisdom, of sage wisdom. We have our own internal struggles. Damien is an old friend and someone that used to be in like foster care with Adonis, and I think they used to be very, very close. Damien is also a force in Adonis's life that I think got him very interested in boxing and active in that space. And they shared this really intense time together, and then their lives went in very different directions. And I think because of that, Damien is someone for whom Adonis holds a tremendous amount of guilt and some regret that I don't think he's processed, and that he hasn't needed to, because Damien's been away and in prison, and now he comes back. And I think all of those emotions and feelings and thoughts that have been unprocessed come back to the surface and really create sort of the crux of the conflict in this third installment. Yeah, it's been tremendous to get to work with Mike as a director. I love him so much. I think a relationship between an actor and a director at best is one that has a tremendous amount of trust and respect and admiration, but certainly trust. And we have that in spades just because we've been working together for so long and we know each other so well that there's this sort of unspoken understanding. And then it's just been really fun to watch how seamless he is with it, that he could be entirely in a scene. My favorite thing is that sometimes he won't yell cut. He'll just like very slyly do this, like while he's kind of still acting. And it took me a while to notice that he was doing it. And then I caught it and I was like, that is very smooth. That is very smooth. When we're opposite each other in the scene, he's entirely Adonis and playing the scene. And then he comes out of it and assesses what he needs to assess in terms of, all of the rest of the elements. But when we're playing together, he's my acting partner. And that, to be able to shift between those two things with such dexterity is really just such a talent and a gift. And I sort of suspected it would be that way, but I'm hugely proud of him.